before we get out from here, you are a poet, aren't you?
I am. I am a poet.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Man, if you got a little bit more time, can we dive into that a little bit, if you don't
Okay. Yeah,
mind?
yeah, we can dive into that a little bit.
Okay. Okay. So look, so what got you into poetry? Let's talk about it. What got you into poetry?
Uh, so man, that's a good question. That's a real good question. So I grew up in a family of music.
Mm,
My entire dad's side of the family did music, and if you were in the family, you either had to play something or an
mm,
instrument, or you had to sing.
mm.
So when I was younger, I really took to the drums. I couldn't sing all that good, so
Okay.
I
So you
was
went on
I
Gerald Levert.
struggled. I struggled on the drums a little bit, and I couldn't sing all that good. And I was in a music family, so I had to
Mm,
figure it out. So while I was trying to learn the drums, I started writing lyrics to songs. So I would
okay.
listen to other people's songs and I would rewrite their lyrics the way that
Mm,
I felt like the song should go.
mm,
And it went from writing lyrics to writing rhymes to writing poetry.
okay.
And throughout my middle school years and high school years, I was involved in speech. I was
Mm,
involved in theater. I was involved in choir, and I was on the speech team, and I would write different speeches, compete in competitions, and on the side, I developed this alter ego called Jack of Poetry.
mm,
So um, a lot of my poems were dealing with a lot of the things. At the time, I didn't realize it, but as I got older and went back and started reading the poems, it was dealing with a lot of the things that I faced growing up in a broken home with either
mm,
my dad in one city and my mom in another city. And I would express myself through poetry and talk about how
mm.
I felt. So even in the songs that I wrote, I would sing songs to talk about how I felt in that moment in my life.
Mm,
And poetry became my outlet to be able to talk about how I really felt until I navigated to a space to where I didn't need to write it down. I could just talk about it. And I
mm,
think I can relate to a lot of people who would have a hard time saying it. So you write it down and you get your heart on paper. And I'm one that if you give me time, man, I could put my heart on some paper.
look.
And that's what I started to do. And I felt safe in that arena. And I had some of my poems published on Poetry.com.
Mm,
And I actually won an award for one of my poems on Poetry.com back in the day when there was a Poetry.com. It doesn't exist anymore.
mm.
But I won an award for Poem of the Year. So it was pretty dope that I actually got a chance to win that award. Poetry has always been a part of my fabric and who I am, and I believe that it is a way of expressing yourself, and for a lot of people, it leads to a lot of different areas, and for some people, poetry is their thing, man. And I think
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
different levels to this. So some
Hmm.
people are writers, and some people are performers, and some
Hmm.
people are really, really good at both.
So
And
what's the difference between writing and performing? Like, don't you have to write your performance in there? I mean, what is the difference?
so some people write poems that are designed to be read by others.
Mm,
So they
okay.
write with the intent for people to paint them a picture while they read.
Hmm.
This is not designed to be performed because they don't have any
Mm,
intention of performing it. And then
mm,
some people will write their poetry to be performed in front of others, so that And you may read the word, but it's not about how you read the word. It's about how I say that word, right?
Mm-hmm.
How I put that emphasis on that word, or how I slow
Okay.
it down, or how I speed it up, how I give it that oomph, right? And it
Right.
changes the dynamic of the whole poem when I say it the way that I feel, right? So
Right.
that you feel me along with my words. And that's where
Mm,
the performance comes in. It changes the dynamic and the feel of the poem itself.
mm. So, I guess that, what category would you put me in?
I put you in the category where you are an elite writer and elite performer. So you're both.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. But
Yeah.
you know what? I really never thought about, people just actually reading my poems and stuff like that. And because when I write, I just write. And people ask me like, how do you come up with your material that you write? I'm like, look, it's the Most High, because some of the stuff I be writing be shocking me at sometimes. I'm like, dang, that was really dope. That was fire.
Yeah.
So it's like, my inspiration comes from above, because whatever he want me to write down, hey, look, I'm typing and writing it down, and when I read it, I'm like, "Whoa, that was fire! That was like a multi double entendre." So poetry, yeah, that's my thing. But I'm gonna ask you, can you give me, your first time standing before a crowd reciting your poetry? How did you feel, and what was your mental at that time?
The first time that I was in front of a crowd performing my poetry, it was at an open mic night. So I used to have a band back in the day called Peculiar Sound.
Mm,
Where if people who watching Ray Love out there,
okay.
Rager Hall, aka Rager Hall. We used to go around different places performing, and there was an open mic night, and uh, and I was hosting it.
Mm,
So there was a situation to where the band was playing background music in between different artists who would come up and either sing or do comedy or rap or do poetry. So
mhm,
there was this one dope poet that came up and really killed it, and I came behind them with another poem, and it shocked the whole place. Like they were crazy, and I wasn't nervous about it because at that time, hosting was my thing, so I wasn't
okay.
nervous.
Okay.
But I pulled out my little piece of paper with my poem on it, and I read it, and it landed good. Everybody loved it, so
Mm.
it was a good moment.
Man, that look, I ain't gonna lie. My first time on the stage, I was nervous. I was
Yeah,
fumbling over my words. My mouth was dry. I needed water. People looking at me, and I'm like, oh man, I anxiety. Ah, like it was just real bad anxiety for me, and like it didn't go good. And but I got through the poem and stuff like that, but it wasn't what I could do now. I had to
yeah,
really learn and come into myself as a poet, and also just rehearse and go over my material, and give the best performance. Like I do try to go out there and perform. At the last event that I was at, it was another poet there, and he did excellent. But I felt like my style was more of a performer. He was like, reciting,